Hey guys, welcome to the bat shop. Today I wanted to talk to you about repairing bat houses. Now I've seen various damages done to bat houses over time. Usually it's because the bat house fell from a height onto the ground or onto concrete, and typically what happens is the edge of the roof will get cracked if it hits just the right way, but otherwise they're fairly durable. I've also seen forklifts run through them during shipping. Not much you can do about that, but I've seen some unusual damage to one of our bat houses. Now a customer sent these images in. I'll let you take a look at them. And you can see the front was hollowed out by a woodpecker. Woodpeckers can do a lot of damage. Typically they'll leave bat houses alone. I don't know why they chose to mess with these bat houses. We've not had any other reports of woodpecker damage to bat houses. Like I said, usually they fall either during installation or because of a storm. So what I want to do is show you some options for repairing that type of damage to your bat house. Now the first option, of course, is to get with us and we can send you a new front and some new parts if you want to be this adventurous and try to do the repair. And you can cut the old front of the bat house off. Now at this point, if you haven't watched one of our assembly videos where we show you how we put the bat houses together, I'd advise you to go do that. There's a lot of good information you can see inside the bat house and how it is assembled, and that'll give you good information on what to do or what you're battling against. And specifically, one of the things you're battling against is this caulk. Now when you reassemble it, I would advise using this. You can pick it up at one of the large depot stores. Try not to mention any companies or brand names here other than we do use this specific caulk, PL. There are a few other brands out there, but this is what's available here. But what you really want is a roof and flashing sealant. This is a flexible polyurethane sealant adhesive, basically, and it does take about 24 hours to dry, but it is extremely tenacious and seals very well against the weather. So when you do reassemble, I'd advise you to use that. So if you have a front that needs to be replaced, I'm going to walk you through a couple of solutions that you can do, at least a couple. The first one is an all-out repair. You're going to take this off and replace it with a new front. Now that's easier said than done. What you're going to need to do is remove the screws on both sides, here and here. You can leave these screws in place. These can stay. You'll see why in a moment. But take the screws out on both sides. Then you're going to need to fight this center shingle up, and if you do order parts from us, we'll try to remember, but if you'll let us know, we'll throw in an extra couple of shingles so that you can repair the roof if you need to. Now the way to do that is to use a putty knife, and you can dive up under the shingle and get it free. Peel it up, and you're going to want to take this center screw out. The two sides can stay. They're actually secured into the sides of the bat house. But the center one and both sides are going to have to come down and come out. Now what you're going to want to do is to take the thinnest saw that you can get. I've got a few options here. This is a rather large keyhole saw. Maybe a little too large for this. Another one is a little thinner. And if I were about to tackle it, I would actually use my pull saw here because it's the thinnest and it's got aggressive teeth that should cut through. Another good option, I don't happen to have one, but you can get one of the hacksaw blade holders. Get a coarse hacksaw blade and get one of the holders for the hacksaw blade, and I think that would probably be the best option, is to pick one of those up. They're fairly inexpensive. What you're going to want to do is apply a little bit of separation pressure to try and lift. You're going to find out that is very tenacious adhesive, and you're going to want to cut along this seam as you pull it apart. Now you'll probably cut up here, then come to the other side and cut, but you're going to work your way all the way up to the top and all the way to the top on this side. as you're cutting, you're going to want to damage the front. That's the component that's already damaged. So you're going to want to guide the saw into the front and try to keep it out of the side. If you do happen to take just a little bit of width off this side all the way up, don't worry about that. If this chamber is a 1/16 of an inch narrower, it's not going to have any impact for the bats. But cut up both sides. Be aware when we assemble, there's going to be a little finish nail here and a little finish nail at the top, and most saws should go through that. That's one reason I recommend a hacksaw blade on a holder would probably be better. And you're going to get through these nails. Occasionally there might even be a nail in the middle. It just depends on the who assembled it, whether I assembled it or someone else assembled it for you. And once you cut up both sides, then you're going to want to work this top. Now, if you pull this and start lifting it up and pivoting it, you should be able to help break free here, but you may have to take your saw blade in and run it along here as well. And the object is to just get this front off. Once the front is off, you can put the new front on, and you'll find that on the inside there is an internal brace. You can see that in our assembly video. And it's going to be secured to the front. I would recommend not trying to remove that, as it's just going to create damage. If you do buy repair parts, we'll include one of these braces. Now save the screws that you take out. We'll send you some extra ones in case you lose them, but save the screws. Those can be used. These screws in particular, you can now take them out and reuse them. Or if you look in the screws that we sent to you, you'll see that some of the screws are slightly shorter than the other screws here. And that's because when you put these in, they're going to come all the way through. So what you want to do is center this, and you'll put a little bit of adhesive caulk on there. You can use the bat house itself now that you've opened it up. You can use the sides themselves to help you center this in the right place. And you'll center it in, make sure this is flush. Then you'll pre-drill so that you get your countersink here, and you'll use those shortened screws to put here and here, and go ahead and hold this in place. So you will have reconstructed the front, basically copying the bad one, and you'll reconstruct it with a new front here. Now once this part of it is done, flip it over. If you reuse these screws, you should be fine. If you use the screws we sent to you, you'll notice the very tip of them is sticking out. Use something like a file or a pair of side cuts, but get rid of that sharp tip. We actually use a pair of side cuts before we put the screws in, but you can also do it after the fact. Just take a flat file and hit it a couple of times. It's okay if it sticks out, you just don't want it to be sharp that can cut. As long as you can rub your hand over it, if you feel it, that's fine, but you don't want it to be sharp so that it cuts. Then you're going to want to put your sealant down both sides like this, and you'll want to run a bead of sealant here on this piece. You'll fit this in, fold it down, make sure everything's in place. Then you'll pre-drill and you'll put these screws back in. Remember, these are already here. You'll put these screws back in, and then you'll come up here and you'll put this screw back in, and you can re-glue the shingle back down at that point. And at that point it should be repaired. It'll be ready for paint. Use a high quality exterior grade paint. If you want to match the paint that was already there, if you'll shoot us an email or give us a call, we'll give you the paint codes for that. We use Sherwin-Williams Duration paint to paint the exterior. That's about $70 or $80 a gallon, and they only sell it by the gallon. But you can go to one of the depot stores and just get a high quality exterior grade paint. If you take the old front with you, they can color match that, which might not be a bad idea, because if it's been out in the weather, it will have faded some, and they can match the faded color rather than the fresh new color if you just want to repaint the front. Or you can repaint the whole thing, or you can repaint the whole thing a different color, as long as you keep the shade about the same. If the bat house has been successful, or if you decide it needs to be darker or lighter, you can make that decision at that time. Now, I mentioned an alternative to repair. Honestly, if I were about to repair one that I had out that had this kind of damage, this is what I would do. With this, you don't really even need to order parts from us. You certainly can. We can send you a new front if you want to do this. But what I would do is I would get a new front for the bat house. I'd make sure this was smooth, knock off anything that's here. If you've got the deco bat, you can, I guess I should mention that, if you do have the deco bat, you can take a chisel and kind of drive in. It's held on with the same glue, and it'll have a couple of nails in it. They're really, really small though, but it should pull right out and peel off the front. Smooth that down with rough sandpaper or even a file to make sure that the surface is smooth. And then what I would do is I would come up here and draw a line just above these vents. As long as there's no damage down here on these vents, I would draw a line and I would cut this straight across here. And then I would put this directly on front of the existing house as a patch. Now when I put it on, I would, if you'll come in and look here, put it on a little low. I would leave this screw here. I would put this on about here so that I can pre-drill and put a new screw in to hold the patch on. And this gap up here, I would just fill with caulk. I would just leave a slight gap here and fill it with caulk. Remember, it's already sealed on the one on the back, so sealing this shouldn't be any problem or issue. Another option here is if you do have a table saw that you can cross bevel, you can figure out, like you see, this lacks about 1/4 of an inch lining up with this screw. You just want to make sure you miss it if you are going through here. But if you want to line up with that, you can come up here. It's a 25-degree bevel, and you can bevel this again and take a little bit more off so this moves up. If you do that, you can take these screws out, put this over them, and put the same screws, or you might want to pick up some longer screws at that point, and put the screws through both pieces. When you do put the patch on, I would put plenty of caulk around the perimeter. In the middle shouldn't be a problem, but I would put plenty of caulk around the perimeter. Use copious amounts because these roosting grooves are going to be on the back. You want to make sure those get filled to make a nice tight seal. Put it in. Don't worry about caulk squeezing into the inside and being exposed. Once it's cured, it's non-toxic, safe for the bats. And bats don't chew. They'll pick and pull, but they don't chew. And you can apply the patch to the front like that, and then come back and run a bead of caulk along this bottom edge to seal that, and that would repatch, put a patch on the front of it for you. So those are two options to do the repair. Another third option that would be more complicated, it depends on the type of damage to the front of it. But you could get a jigsaw. You'd need to make sure you used a short blade so you did not damage the baffle in the front, or at least cut through it. It's okay if you hit it. And you can take the patch material, which could be just a regular piece of 1/2-inch plywood, put it over it, and kind of mark where, like if you know the holes here, you would mark the corner here, here, and here, so you make sure you're bigger than that. Then take a drill to the inside of that square, and then take your jigsaw and cut through both pieces. This way, you drill another hole, this way, and cut 2 pieces at once. So when you got done making that kind of a cut, what you would end up with, I'll just use this as a sample. Imagine this is cut here. What you'll end up with is a square hole in the front of your bat house with a square piece that matches it. Once you do that, take some more plywood and cut some strips, and put those strips around it. You can put caulk behind it, and you can make it kind of like a picture frame is what it would look like. You can put those strips around it, secure them to it. You can just do flat butts this way, or you could 45 them to make them like a real picture frame. whatever you want to do, but you're making a door essentially. And you're going to let it overhang at least a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So you're going to want 1.5 inch to 2 inch strips, depending on the size of the hole, and make that frame around it. Then you'll run caulk around the frame that would be overhanging all the way around, and you would just press it into the patch. And you would use this, all you need are some small finish nails because the glue is really going to do the work. If you got a pneumatic nailer, put them in at an angle, get some 3/4 inch screws, put them in at an angle just to tack this in place and let the glue dry. And what you'll end up with is just a patch in the front that looks like it's been framed, and you could even, paint you a little picture in there, or whatever you want to do to get creative. But that's a third option to do that. What I want to do now is remind you what the inside of the bat house will look like. If you think you got it now, you can stop the video. But this is just a demo of what the inside of the bat house is going to look like as you pull it apart, just so you can see the pieces here. Again, it's worth watching our assembly video as well. These will be secured in place. You'll have a roof that's secured in place here. And again, these screws right here, they may just grab the edge of the front when they come through. So you may find that this screw, even though it's going into the side, it may grab just the edge of this front, but that's okay. It should peel right through. There's not a lot of meat there for it to hold on to. It's basically going into the side. And this piece will be on the inside like this. You can see it there. All this will be glued together. So when you cut both sides, you'll have taken this screw out, both of the side screws. You'll cut both sides. You'll be working the front up this way, breaking it off. And you may need to take your saw and go in here to help break it free, and you'll pull it out. The main body of the bat house, at that point, you can take a razor knife, or you can use the saw, kind of clean it up. Any debris that's left over here that would interfere with the seal, you can clean up, so that when you reassemble, you'll get a nice seal. Again, this piece will be attached to the front here. You can pull the screws out and reuse them, but you're likely going to find this piece is not going to easily come off. It's going to have a couple of swaths of that glue on it stuck to it. When you break it free, it's probably going to tear either chunks of this out or chunks of the front out onto here, and do that. So that is my repair recommendations for the type of repair that you see on those bat houses. Again, repaint them. Should be fine to put them back in service at that point. If you got any questions or comments, let me know. If you do repair one of our bat houses, send us some pictures. We'd be glad to share those with others so that they can see what needs to be done. But they do need maintenance over time. They do need touch-up, repainting, recalking. It's just a factor of putting something made out of wood into the environment. We intentionally choose not to use polymers, plastics, and metals, simply because research has shown that they're not necessarily the most successful in smaller bat houses. What seems to be the most successful is concrete, rock, things of that nature. That's pretty heavy and tough to build out of. Or wood. Wood structures seem to do well because bats encounter that. Pretty common in nature, and know what to do with it and how to roost on it. So let us know if you got any questions, and we appreciate you watching.